I was going to ask you this a while ago. You, I think I think this was your one of your manifestos. I think you said something about how you were going to debate Vosh on Israel Palestine, but he didn't want to because
Well, he dodged, so
you're okay.
yeah.
D Is that because your views were different to his, or like I think he said that you guys would mostly agree, right?
Well, he
But
did
you
after
don't
he
think you
saw
do?
me, yeah, argue about it, and then, but I don't think anybody knows much about Israel Palestine. So
Yeah, it's been happening a lot on my streams lately. I guess like you know that Katie person, she's been involved in that stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I know, Katie. Yeah.
What's your Have you been catching up with what's been happening there recently?
No, why? What's been happening to her recently?
It's pretty bad. Israel have elected like the most right-wing government they've ever had.
Oh,
They've
I thought you said what's been happening to her recently.
oh no, not her. No, sorry. Yeah, no, Israel.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that they had a very, very, very right-wing government now. Yeah. I don't
I think they've
know why, but yeah,
tried to get rid of the thing that's like. I mean, I can tell you a bit if you want.
go for it.
So, I think what happens is that like the way that they got there's a separate thing. But like they seem to have gone through this path now where a lot there's like because there's like two different types of right wing Zionists, right? There's like they're the ones who believe in like encroaching on places like the West Bank because they want to because of like security and they feel like they have some kind of like indigenous claim to the land. And then there are like the ultra religious ones who think it's like their God-given right, and they're typically like a lot more extreme. They're the ones who will typically go into the West Bank without the state of Israel's approval and set up these like outposts
Okay.
where they'll set up like tents or like caravans, like just like little box houses, just to cement their claim. And they're often like insanely violent towards the to the local population. Sometimes the state of Israel will demolish those outposts. Other times they'll hook them up to water and electricity and just leave them there as like illegal to us, but we'll just have them there anyway.
Yeah, because once you've got land for some point of time and people living there, you get a very, very, very strong claim to basically owning it. Yeah.
Yeah, because the more settlers that are there, they can say, well, we can't pull out now because
Exactly.
Palestinians will just kill them all, right?
Yeah, I think India, Modi did this with Kashmir or whatever when he's like, we're going to start building houses up there in this contested region because it's basically like, I think once you've got people settled there long enough, nobody's going to be like, well, time to remove them all.
Yeah. So I think what happens now is there's this like sort of cyclical thing where more people will become more brazen with the settlements, and because they do that, and because settlers are they're very violent, is that they will encroach further on Palestinians, and then you'll get a response from Palestinians, like more militias and more insurgency groups that get really popular. Eventually, a settler dies, or like an Israeli civilian dies, and then
They use that as a
Israelis
pretense
crack
for
down, and then
going
they
in.
push more inwards. Yeah, yeah. So now they've got to a point where those ultra-religious Zionists who have been kept at bay for quite a long time are in the government now as part of the coalition. So there's one guy who wants to legalize a bunch of those outposts, like the illegal settlements, the ones that Israel considers illegal. There's someone who is like, there's like a really insanely anti-LGBT guy. There's someone who actually has been convicted of charges of terrorism in the past as a settler. And yeah, they've just done this thing where the Supreme Court, the government can override the Supreme Court, like just they can like a Supreme Court decision. So that might suggest that they're maybe not even a democracy anymore. We'll see. And the result of that is more recently, I think I can't remember how it started. There's been a lot of raids back and forth and attacks, but more recently there was two settlers who were killed by Palestinians, and they were both quite young. And the result of that was that the village that they lived in, Huara, was there were riots by the settlers throughout the town where they like torched like 100 houses. One person died, like 100 people were injured. A few like human rights orgs have called it a pogrom, which descriptively it kind of is. And then
why are there never any like settlers in the Gaza Strip? Is it because they're too well armed there, or
they were removed
by Hamas or
by Sharon in 2005? Yeah, they pulled out of Gaza for a few reasons. One, because like they couldn't expand further and like get any demographic like majority there because Gaza's quite small. Some people say it was like a good faith effort to start peace deals. It's difficult to believe that because I think they pulled 8,000 settlers out of Gaza, and then like in the same year, 13,000 new settlers went to the West Bank. So
Yeah, gotcha.
who knows? But yeah, that's why then Hamas took control and they destroyed all the houses that the settlers lived in. But yeah, that's kind of like when Israel started going like very, very right wing from there onwards, because Hamas became a thing. They started lobbing rockets. But and I think also part of that was like after the settlements were, while they were being dismantled by and the people were being evicted by the IDF, there were all these viral, not viral, but like there were all these videos of like young Israeli girls like begging the IDF to let them keep their houses. And then this became like a very like collective like trauma thing for Israelis, because they basically watched like 8,000 people get removed. Like they called it an ethnic cleansing. They said it was like, I think never again became a slogan because of those. And then that's why the conviction to expand into the West Bank has been a lot stronger, because it's a much more like it's doable thing, right?
Sure.
So yeah, that's why that's the case. That's why there's no settlers in Gaza anymore.
Gotcha.
So what's happening today is that like there was that riot in Huara, and there was like very, very little effort for any kind of like de-escalation. The leader of the West Bank, Abbas, said he was going to let the Emirates push this motion through the UN that would say that the settlements are like a flagrant violation of international law, which means like the United States would have to veto it and they'd look really bad, but that didn't happen. They were going to end security cooperation with Israel. That didn't happen either. Israel said they were going to freeze the settlements for 4 months to de-escalate. They didn't do that either. One of the new government ministers, that convicted terrorist guy, said that he wanted that Huara village to get wiped off the face of the earth. He later said it was a misspeak.
Okay.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
So basically, it's pretty fucked. Like some people are already calling what's happening in the West Bank now like a third intifada, or like the very early stages of one. I don't know. What do you? Why is your position like different from someone like, I guess, like Dylan or Vosh, or where do you stand on the whole thing now?
Where do I stand on the whole thing?
So I feel like
The issue
one
that I
time
had was I don't know what the correct solution is. I feel like I used to think that like the one state solution would be kind of cool, because then everybody can live together in harmony and vote and all that. But then when I look at like, I got a lot, I'll be honest, I got a lot of Jewish people emailing me. I became a lot more sympathetic to how many enemies Israel has in the area. I didn't know as much about like even like the IRGC in Iran, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, is like sending help to like fucking Hamas and Hezbollah. I didn't know anything about like the 6-Day War and fucking Egypt and all these other countries that are like constantly. When I see like how much external pressure like the Jewish people in Israel are facing from Arab majority countries or from Arabic people, and then I think of like how much like Jewish people would be outnumbered in any one state solution. I was like, okay, well, one state solution seems basically like genocide for the Jews. That's what it feels like. If you say like, if you advocate for one state solution, it's genocide for Jews. So then we look at 2-state solutions, like, fuck, well that sucks. What 2-state solution exists that isn't like some kind of like a more complicated version of apartheid, right? That's kind of what it feels like, because it's so yikes. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there.
Yeah, because I think like no one realistically expects 500,000 settlers to leave the West Bank. There are like 145, I think, settlements that Israel recognizes, and they're huge, and they're basically there to stay. Like, if you see them, they look like just like big fucking American-style suburbs and shit like that. There are the outposts, about 100 of those, which are mostly like a bunch of nutcases in boxes, and they should probably leave. But like, yeah, I think it's. I don't really like thinking about 1 or 2 state solution, because Palestinians, for one, don't really agree on either of them. The polling is like up and down. I think right now 2-state has like a third of the vote, a third public support. The 1-state has like 30%. So it's like very because again, like Palestinians maybe don't want like, because they want to, they would like to have an autonomous state where they're like the majority and they can like live by their values and shit. That's a common thing that they'll say. And like autonomy and shit. So yeah, but I think the problem is that focusing on a 1 or 2-state solution is also very like it's very like fantasizing, because we're just so far away from that. There's no peace process on the table at all, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's like a million different things that would have to happen between now and any peace process or any solution. And I also think there's also just something a bit weird about like every time this discussion comes up in amongst like Western leftist groups, it's always like one side will like purity test the other side over a one state solution. So like the more moderates will say two state, the more left wing will say one state, and it's like it just sounds like the aesthetics of that is like you look like a bunch of fucking white colonialists discussing partition plans again, just like the same way that the whole thing started, right?
Yeah.
Like the same, yeah. So
I have no idea like what the actual answer is to. Yeah, I don't even know what the direction. The problem though is that like as time goes on, you're implicitly supporting Israel, right? Because Israel has the power. They're trying to push for more and more settlements. Like there's still a significant presence of Jewish people in the West Bank, right? That they haven't been removed.
Yeah, no, they're still there. Like 500,000 of them.
Yeah, so I mean, as time goes on, like they get a stronger claim to the land, and then what? Eventually, it's just going to be they own it. So. Yeah,
and then they become like a de facto apartheid state, and then the last thing they're going to want to do is give equal rights to 40% of the population, because then they lose their Zionist like Jewish. So that's I think that's the most likely conclusion. I'm pretty doomer on all that. That seems to be where it's going to go, and maybe
but then I don't even know like spiritually or ideologically like what is the right, like if you could like snap your fingers and create like a solution, like what would you even create?
So I'm like very biased on this because like being Middle Eastern, I was taught to like not give a fuck about Israel from the age of like 7. So but no, like ideologically snap your fingers. I think the whole like I think both sides should like be able to share the land, and like the Middle East is a multicultural
Well, hold on,
region.
no, wait. I don't mean like you could make all
like,
the people do a thing. I mean like you could develop a solution. Yeah, because obviously everybody getting along would always be like the best thing, but realistically, that's probably not going to happen. So if you could snap your fingers and make a thing happen, what would you do? Knowing that the people are there are going to be as they are. Yeah.
I think now the only thing that is probably possible to advocate for is like it's like thinking about steps. I think right now it would be an achievement. I think people like need to remember that right now getting Israel to stop expanding settlements would be an achievement, right?
Okay.
That would be like insane. Getting them to dismantle all those like outposts would be a huge step. I sometimes wonder why, and then actually the situation after that might change to a point that we couldn't even predict it would have been like now, right? Because like I believe in like there can be lots of like knock-on effects to these kind of things.
Sure.
So I think now, especially given that there was a poll that just came out yesterday, actually, this year and the end of last year have been the very first time in history, I think, that Democrats have been more sympathetic to Palestinians than they are to Israelis.
Okay.
And that's not really moving for Republicans, which is why Biden's probably not doing anything. That's his political strategy. He doesn't want to lose any political capital on it. But if we get to, I think it jumped like 10 points in a year for the Democrat side. If it jumps another 10 points or another 10 points, then like Democrats are eventually going to need to decide like what to push for, right? Or like Western activists in general are going to decide what demand to make, right? Because ultimately,
sure, but I mean, like, what it feels like
Europe can like twist Israel's arm and shit.
Unless somebody's getting killed or something like that is happening, like we tend to not give a fuck about Palestine or the Middle East, right? The only thing that really happens is when there's another attack, either rocket attack or Israel killing some Palestinians or whatever. That journalist attack was a really big deal a few years ago, but other than that, we kind of like it drops off our radar pretty quickly.
Yeah, but a lot of people are going to get killed quite soon. I don't think the violence is not going away. I really don't think so. Like that whole third intifada thing, like it's not enough to call it an intifada yet, but it seems to be like it's going to go that way.
Can you, for the audience who doesn't know, obviously I know, but for those who don't, what is an intifada?
An intifada just means like armed, like uprising, like insurrection. So
Gotcha.
Rebellion, uprising. I can't remember what the Arabic word actually means, but yeah. Yeah, just like, so the first intifada, there was like lots of like strikes and demonstrations and riots. There was that very famous picture of a 5-year-old throwing a rock at a tank. The second intifada was kind of insane. There was still a lot of that same stuff, but then there were also lots of people who went into Israel and just made it their job to kill as many Jews as possible.
Jesus Christ.
There's that pizza shop bombing where a terrorist guy like actually waited until the pizza shop was completely full in the middle of the day and then went in and just blew it to fuck, like because it was full of families and shit. So yeah, the second intifada was like really, really rough. And yeah, that's so, but it looks like we're kind of going back towards one of those because and I think for Palestinians, I think they're polling on it is like more than half of them think that's the only thing they can do. And
Is this is the polling here similar between Gaza Strip and Hamas, or is the Gaza Strip still significantly more radical than the? Or I'm sorry, is the Gaza Strip still more radical than the West Bank? Yeah.
Yeah, Gaza's still more radical. Yeah. The most popular politician actually is at the moment for Palestine is neither Hamas nor the PA. It's a guy called Marwan Barghouti, who is currently in jail because of the second Intifada. He did a lot of nasty shit, but I think he also actually is like, he's kind of described as like the Mandela of Palestinians. Like he's secularist. I think he denounces like killing of civilians now, but he's also called for like a third Intifada in the West Bank. That's like his big thing. But he would be like the most popular leader if he wasn't in jail. So yeah, I don't know. It feels like that's the only way it's going to go. And I think if you're like a Western activist, I think a lot of this, I think even just like ending the settlements is like the only thing that can be realistic, like can be like asked for that we'd expect to result anytime soon.
The United States doesn't put much pressure on Israel as far as like settlement shit goes, do we?
No. They every now and then they'll say it's like it's hurting the two-state solution, you know, and then nothing happens. Like right now, the government said they would do a 4-month freeze, like a freeze, and they just didn't do it. So, and actually, at the same day that was announced, I think one of the politicians actually said we're not even going to stop for 1 day. So yeah.
Did you see the ICC arrest warrant for Putin? Changing gears a little bit. Does that matter?
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Does that mean that you have like is he like allowed to travel to foreign countries? Is there like an obligation for some country to...
Probably not. No. I know actually coming back to like Palestinian activists do like legal stuff all the time. There are still Israeli people I think in government who, or have been in the past, who can't leave the country because they'll get arrested. Like, so I think it's the same story, right?
I don't know. I'm asking you. I've never had a warrant by the ICC on me before. So.
Yeah, the ICC thing usually means like I think Pinochet was arrested because he went to Spain or some shit. Yeah, I think that's generally what it means. But it depends on which country you go to, right? He's probably safe in like Belarus.
Yeah, for sure. Or like China or like Eurasia areas, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it probably doesn't mean the blue helmets are going to go into Russia. Yeah.
Did you see the I think U.S. intelligence report that it might have been a pro-Ukrainian group that did the Nord Stream pipeline?
I haven't looked into that at all, so I don't really know.
Supposedly they were operating independently, I think was what the intel said right now, but which is interesting. Because I think initially a lot of people were looking at Russia as potentially being the ones to sabotage it, but then people were also saying, like, does that make sense? Because Russia's losing money, and then people were saying, well, maybe, yeah, but...
Yeah. I have no idea. I think the last I heard was that Bakhmut is still a struggle for Russia, even though it's been like 7 months now.
Wait, that what is? Oh, the area
Bakhmut,
and...
yeah, the town southeast. Yeah.
Do they, where, in terms of like Donetsk and Luhansk, are they like pushed out of those areas, or they still have control over those areas? They must still have control over those areas, right?
No, Russia has like, I think they have most of Luhansk, and I think like almost all of it, and I think it's Donetsk that they have a little bit less of, but still quite a lot as well. It's the Kherson and Zaporizhia region that they don't have as much of anymore. Yeah. Even with that, like, you know, when people talk about, like, people still like to debate about whether or not Ukrainians should take back Crimea, I even find debates like that kind of useless as well, because it's the same idea, right? Because right now, it seems to be the case that you would just say, okay, they've managed to reclaim more than half of what was taken since 2022. Just let them keep going. If it ideally gets to the stage where they have all those 4 regions back in the east and south, and then it's only Crimea left, then I imagine where you go next would be like, depend on the circumstances then, right?
I think
Crimea is like a fortress. It's like a really
geographically too. I might be biased on this, I don't think I am, but I think the concerns rolling over Crimea are just people that are anti-war. I think it's literally just that. They never supported Ukraine ever, and Crimea is just like the new like area for them to rally around. Like, oh no, like don't do this.
Yeah, that's the let's have peace talks and give Russia a bunch of shit. Yeah. Like my own expectation, I think, is that Crimea might become like another Golan Heights, where it's it's annexed by Russia, but no one recognizes it. But the thought of like it going in there with the military and taking it back is like.
Is the Golan Heights, does
maybe
nobody
too much.
recognize Israel as being the rightful owner of it right now? Is that true?
I think Trump did, he recognized it, didn't he? But I don't know if that has stayed. But yeah, Golan Heights is like, yeah, it's mostly not recognized.
Huh.
I think. I could be completely wrong, actually. What the fuck?
I don't know. I was just asking. I don't know. Don't doubt because of mine.
Okay. United States recognition. Oh yeah, the United States recognized in 2019.
Okay,
Signed in
gotcha.
by Trump. That's cringe.
Wow.
What, anything else?
I don't know. You tell me, Chief.
I feel like I had something else, but I forget. Hang on, let me see. What is this fucking video game you're playing?
Oh, it's a zombie killing game. It's like a Tower D zombie builder RTS something. I don't know.
Do you think if you weren't streaming, you'd be a video game addict?
I was a video game addict before streaming, so yeah, I would imagine probably so. Yeah.
God damn. I had to. I canceled my Warcraft subscription because I was playing too much again. WoW Classic.
Oh no. Wow, classic. Yikes. Even more embarrassing. Jeez.
So cringe.
Did you?
I mean, I wasn't even playing too much. I just didn't need it. It wasn't doing anything for me anymore, you know. So even if it was like an hour a day and shit, I was like, okay, did I enjoy that? Not really. Yeah.
Did you are you doing Diablo 4 at all? Do you care about that game or no?
No, I don't really play that many games. I played Elden Ring for a little bit. I think I got stuck on that fucking Rada, whatever the fuck his name is, and then stopped that. But yeah, right now my only video game is chess.com or League Chess. Yeah.